G'day guys and welcome to Raging Rhino with the 6th episode of The Acolyte literally just around the corner. I wanted to do a quick recap on just some of the way that the media, the mainstream media, the access media have actually been covering this series since its inception. So we've been going for 4 weeks now because we had the double episode opener and then of course we had episode 3, 4 and 5. So we've been going for 4 weeks now. And I just wanted to go over some of the things. Now, of course, there was the Disney Star Wars fans that were calling us all racist, bigots, and all of that sort of thing. And then, of course, just as a little reminder, we also had Looper come out and actually specifically blame Nerdrotic and Critical Drinker for their criticisms of the show and how that encourages hatred and bigotry. Just as a little reminder, let's take a listen to what they actually had to say.
Some audience members have issues with the show's diversity and LGBTQ+ themes, and those should be dismissed. However, viewers should genuinely examine the legitimate criticisms The Acolyte has received. Cultural critics like the Critical Drinker and Nerdrotic have dubbed the show lore-breaking for its recent revelations, but their commentary isn't productive. Rather, it encourages bigotry and hatred over a show that's just getting started.
So, of course, it's just these YouTubers out there that are actually creating the hate and the bigotry towards these shows. It actually has nothing to do with the fact that these people, these YouTubers out there, are actually criticizing the show for its law breaking, for its poor writing, for its actual destructive writing to Star Wars canon. All of these other elements to it. They think that all we're doing is sitting here saying, oh, it's bad because it's got a black woman in it or something like that. It's really strange because when you watch these people's videos, the criticism has really nothing to do with that. I mean, I would argue that Amanda Stenberg's not acting very well in the series. But again, it's got nothing to do with the fact that she's black or a woman. Of course, Amanda Stenberg then came out and then obviously gave us her little diss track, you know, if you remember. That was unbelievable, right? And it reminded me, of course, and it reminded, I'm sure, a lot of people of Ewan McGregor's car video, you know, in support of Moses Ingram for, you know, Obi-Wan Kenobi because she was getting racist messages. But this is the main thing that I actually wanted to go over with you. It's just some of the articles, some of the headlines that we've been seeing from the media out there, the mainstream media, the access media, all of that kind of thing, in regards to how they're flip-flopping their narratives just as much as the characters in the show are flip-flopping with their motivations and just their character development. So I just want to point out the dates here. On the 16th of June, Forbes came out and said the Acolyte's 15% audience score is embarrassing for the audience scorers, blaming you, the fans, for the poor score. Now, yes, it is the fans that have given it the poor score, but they're saying that it's embarrassing for you to come out and actually say that. Just 12 days later, on the 28th of June, from Forbes. Now, I do again also want to point out, I know it's not exactly the same person writing every single article, but it just goes to show the hypocrisy of these websites and the stuff that they actually spit to try and play damage control or in support of Disney and their horrible garbage Star Wars storytelling, all of that sort of thing. And then when it just can't be defended anymore, they then, you know, actually come to terms with the fact that maybe it is actually shit. Maybe the fans were actually right. And maybe it doesn't come just straight down to bigotry. Otherwise, we could sit there and say Forbes as being sexist, racist bigots, or some of the other ones that I'm going to show you. But like I said, 12 days later, the Acolyte's Rotten Tomatoes score keeps falling. And maybe it should if we ever hope to find balance in the Force. 12 days after, they say that it's embarrassing for the audience scorers to give it a 15%. Once it actually does hit that 13% mark, they then come out and say, maybe they were right. But I want to show you a couple of others. This was on the 20th of June. The Acolyte's 4th episode, Controversy, is too absurd to be believed. And they do go on to talk about the fans and the problems that they're having with these shows, the law-breaking issues that obviously Kiadi Mundi being in the episode is actually law-breaking. But then on the 29th, we've got Star Wars fans are being weird about the Acolyte. So 9 days after they give us this, blaming the fans again and how they're being ridiculous with their criticisms of the show. Again, these criticisms about Ki-Adi-Mundi shouldn't even be alive, and him knowing about the Sith and all of that kind of thing. Does that have anything to do with hatred and bigotry? Or is that actually to do with the lore and the continuity of these actual shows? But again, the fans are being weird about it because you've got obviously the two sides of the fan base right now in regards to that. They mentioned Chris Gore in here. Obviously the Ki-Adi-Mundi thing. The fans are just being weird because they don't want, the lore and canon to be broken. I find that to be completely strange, completely weird. But then on the 29th, so this is on the same day as this article drops, we get this headline from Forbes. The Acolyte continues a long, tragic Star Wars tradition ruining the Jedi. Oh, hang on a second. Isn't that racist and bigotry to actually say that Disney Star Wars is actually ruining the Jedi? Because I believe the fans have been saying that for a long time now. I would argue that they've been saying it before the Acolyte even dropped. When you look at things like how the lightsabers work and how they're really that deadly weapon anymore, or how Ahsoka portrays Jedi and the Force, all of that sort of thing. But they're not the only one. Forbes is not the only one. You've got Giant Freaking Robot 3 weeks ago saying this: the Acolyte doesn't deserve this stupid criticism from Star Wars fans. In this article, they talk about the fire in space. They talk about the twins being conceived by the Force and how the dark side manipulations, all of that sort of thing. But then, just a week after that, they continue with this thing in regards to how the Acolyte is so good, and the Acolyte is what Obi-Wan Kenobi should have been. Obi-Wan Kenobi was just as bad, if not maybe even worse, when it comes to the lore damage, the deconstruction of the canon and the continuity, when it comes to what they did in that show. And then there was this only 6 days ago. The Acolyte's big bad isn't a Sith. Well, that didn't really age very well now, did it? And just at the very bottom of this article, there's just something that I want to point out here, and this is how stupid these people are that are writing these articles. It would only make sense if the Acolyte Sith was actually an apprentice trying to recruit May to help them overtake their Sith master. Well, that's not in line with the rule of two, number one, because it wasn't the apprentice recruiting their own apprentice to then both of them take on the master, because that goes against Bane's rule of two. But the fact that they're saying that it would only make sense if the Acolyte Sith was just the apprentice, it's still a Sith and still goes against what Ki-Adi-Mundi said, and obviously does a lot of damage to Star Wars lore canon continuity. But again, that didn't age very well, did it? But then 12 hours ago, now I do want to point out that this Zach guy, the guy that's written this article here, also wrote this one. Didn't write this one, but did write this one 6 days ago. But then in this one, 12 hours ago, says the Acolyte proves that Star Wars is turning good movies into lame series movie. I don't know, that the way that that's read doesn't really sound right. But basically, if you go through the article, is basically then admitting that, maybe this isn't quite as good. Whereas, like I said, 6 days ago, he was still trying to defend it. 2 weeks ago, they were saying how that this show should have been what Obi-Wan Kenobi should have been. And 3 weeks ago, saying that the stupid criticism from Star Wars fans isn't deserved. The Acolyte doesn't deserve that criticism. So again, Giant Freaking Robot, you complete and utter hypocrites. And I have no doubt that there's articles out there where these guys and others are actually calling out the fans. I mean, they're calling out the fans here. They're calling the fans stupid for their criticism, right? But then, of course, the infamous one from Inverse, the Acolyte isn't ruining Star Wars, you are. Well, let's take a look, shall we? That was on the 9th of June. You've then got this one, which was on, where are we? Down here. The 15th of June. I've got to highlight this because of my dark mode. Anyway, the Acolyte needs to figure out what kind of show it wants to be. What are you saying? That it's actually not really that good a writing? Is that what you're actually saying? On the 15th of June, that came out. This article came out on the 9th of June. That's interesting that 6 days later, you're the one saying that this show needs to figure out what it wants to actually be. Let's keep going. Another one from Inverse. I've got to turn off my dark mode. Sorry, it goes so bright all of a sudden. This was on the 20th of June. The Acolyte just rewrote everything we thought we knew about the Jedi High Council. Gee, I wonder why that is. Does that have something to do with the fact that they made some stupid comment about not being able to take this information to the Jedi Council because they would have to report it to the Senate or something like that, and how ridiculous that actually is? And then you've got this one. One scene in The Acolyte just threw a wrench into Star Wars canon, and that was on the 21st of June. Like, these sites are so hypocritical, right? They'll follow the trends when it suits them, obviously. They'll try and do everything that they can to actually defend these shows and call out the fans like this. You're the problem with Star Wars, right? The Acolyte doesn't deserve this stupid criticism from Star Wars fans, or the Acolyte's 15% audience score is embarrassing for the audience scorers, until it's not trendy anymore and they can't do anything about it because there is overwhelming hate and anger towards Disney for the shit that they're actually putting out when it comes to Star Wars. So I just wanted to show you that, give you a little bit of a history lesson in this one in regards to the bullshit that these mainstream media, the access media, the fans, Looper, all of these guys, even Amanda Stenberg herself coming out and calling out the fans for their racist and bigotry, despite the fact that now everybody is turning on this show. Just to tell you how lame it's actually becoming, how they're throwing a wrench into the canon, or how they're following this trend of ruining the Jedi. All of this stuff. It's absolutely ridiculous. Do not trust anything that these people say. These are within weeks of each other. Like I said, this was within 12 days where they're calling out the audience for their embarrassing scoring of this show, and then actually saying, oh, maybe it's deserved and that'll bring balance in the Force. Fucking get out of here with this bullshit. The show is a disaster. We're expecting episode 6 to not really do much, not answer any questions, still just be as badly written, possibly even more canon destruction as we move through to the final, third of this series. It's going to be an absolute disaster. Anyway, let me know your thoughts about these guys, the media, the mainstream media, publishing their bullshit articles to try and run damage control and in support of Disney's Star Wars garbage, and then completely flipping like the characters like May and Osha do in the actual show. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Later, guys.